Hey all, here are OS Reviews. Today we're taking a closer look at Boya's BY-AP4. These are TWS True Wireless Buds, which offer Qi wireless charging, so you can quickly top it up on a charging mat, just like the Apple AirPods, and it comes in a few distinctive color schemes, which set it apart from the more typical black or white colors that we tend to see. For example, the Black Edition case actually has a orange internal that reminds me of a Halloween theme, and a few other editions are also available. They are IPX7 rated, so it will withstand sweat as well as rain, and it should still survive. And the controls also allow you to do things like change the volume just by long holding on the left or right side to raise it higher or lower. It's great to see support for everything, including volume, playing and pausing, and skipping tracks on the buds themselves. The buds will last for around 6 hours on a full charge, and then with the battery case combined, you get around 30 hours when on the road. Otherwise, they have a Realtek-based chip, so it supports audio codecs like SBC and AAC, but unfortunately it doesn't have support for Qualcomm's aptX. Now here's what it looks like inside of the box, and aside from the buds themselves, other accessories include a soft carrying pouch, some spare tips for adjusting the seal, and also the USB Type-C charging cable, along with the instruction manuals and documented in this little pouch. So these are the white edition of the buds, but we also have the aforementioned black edition and also the gray that it comes in. So we have 3 different options to pick from. Otherwise, the texture on the battery cases are also a little different. The black and white versions do have a glossy finish to them, so it just feels like a rigid polycarbonate plastic, versus the gray edition actually has a soft touch rubber coating over it, so it's a little bit easier to grip and hold. I prefer the texture of this one actually the most, so that's something to keep in mind. Otherwise, on the back of all of these cases, we have the Type-C port for charging. So here we can see it popped onto the top of a charging pad, and it will continuously charge until it reaches full. It takes roughly an hour and a half to fully charge up the battery case. So a neat little, more convenient function there. Otherwise, we do have LED status lights on the front, which give you an indication of how much battery is left whenever you open up the door, so each slot here represents 25%. I also like how there's a bit of a chamfered edge or accent running across the lid, which makes it look a little bit more distinctive and unique. Otherwise, the door, the hinge, opens up all the way and feels rather firm, and once it's open, basically the buds will automatically start pairing with your device, so it's a pretty quick process. For contrast, here are the gray edition, which actually has a coffee accented internal, also makes it look a little bit more interesting in my opinion. The white is probably the most traditional, but inside we also have a slightly different shade compared to the outside. It's a little closer to a grayish or bluish hue, so a light lake blue is how I would describe the inside here. So again, there is a lot of attention to detail here as far as the build is concerned, and overall I like the color scheme that they've chosen. Makes it look pretty elegant and refined. Alright, so taking a closer look at the buds themselves, let's just use the black here as the example. We can pop these out of the case, and as aforementioned, they rely on touch sensors on the top, which are pretty responsive in my testing. They registered even the softest touches from my fingers, and overall, again, you're able to control the volume by holding for a split second, or just tapping once to play and pause your music, and double tap to skip tracks. Otherwise, the buds themselves are very comfortable, and they're lightweight as well, so the fit was pretty good. The seal, I would say, is average. I wouldn't say it's really to the same extent as active noise canceling, but still a comfortable design. Now, as a quick size comparison, first of all, again, the regular AirPod case, you can see, is going to be a little bit slimmer, but overall dimensions are quite similar and comparable. Here are the Redmi AirDots, which are also about the similar thickness, so these are easy enough to put into a pocket. The actual buds themselves against the regular AirPods, you can see the stem is much shorter, so they don't protrude out quite as much, and they do have a tighter seal compared to a semi-open design like these. As far as the audio quality and performance is concerned, in terms of the pros, these are very clean sounding, so you won't really find any traces of distortion or static in the background, and it is decent in terms of latency. You can play and pause a track, the left and right sides are synced together quite well, and if you're watching a movie on YouTube, for instance, it also doesn't become distracting. The video and audio are still synced together quite well. If you're doing things like gaming, there will still be occasionally a split-second delay, but that's pretty much expected from all wireless buds. Again, if they had Qualcomm's aptX, maybe it would have helped a little bit more, since as it is, it doesn't support that codec and doesn't really have a dedicated gaming mode, but regardless, it worked well for me when watching videos, and of course for music listening, it was pretty smooth when scrubbing between parts of the track and playing and pausing. Everything was still in sync. The audio profile and drivers sound pretty warm and enveloping, which makes them good for casual usage if you're listening to pop or even, again, listening to a soundtrack and watching a film. Overall, there's a nice amount of bass here, so if you are a bass head, you'll enjoy it, especially in EDM tracks or drum beats as it hits. It kind of also gives you a nice jolt, although I wouldn't say they're the most bass-heavy buds I've ever tried. Overall, mids are the most pronounced aspect of the sound. In particular, I would say the lower mids, anything with instrumentals, kind of strings, as they're being plucked on a guitar, especially for acoustic sessions. I think it's really where these particular buds shine. If anything, trebles might be the slightly weaker aspect of the sound, where occasionally I feel like some details could be more pronounced, and as it is, it sometimes is a little bit on the slightly dampened side. Higher frequency sounds aren't quite as crisp or super crystal clear as on some other more expensive audiophile grade buds I've tried. But overall, for what it is, I think it already does a pretty good job, especially for pop music where you'll be listening primarily to, again, mids and bass, which is where these are kind of tuned for. And the call quality is also above average because these actually have 4 built-in microphones, so even if there's a bit of background chatter, if you're in a crowd, it actually does try to mitigate that through the software and pick up just your voice, and does work decently, I'd say, comparable to the AirPods. And so that's more or less it as far as our quick hands-on review of the Boya BY-AP4 TWS wireless buds. Overall, I like the fact that these are very customizable in terms of their color scheme, definitely sets you apart from the crowd. The touch controls also give you access to everything you'll need, including volume. It works really well in terms of sensitivity, and overall it's very stable and clean in terms of the Bluetooth transmission process. One thing I will say though is as far as the retail cost of these, they actually sell for under $80, which is a little bit on the higher side compared to some of the other models I've seen that also don't have Qualcomm aptX built on in. So you are paying a little bit more as well for this distinctive color, the fact that Boya does specialize in audio products, including headphones, and they also make some slightly more audiophile quality gear, so they do have more reputation in terms of their tuning and what they call the Boya Sound Lab, so you are paying a bit more for that brand, as well as for some touches like the Qi wireless charging. But overall, I think you're getting a pretty solid package if you want something a little different from a visual perspective. You can check out more details if you're interested, but for now that's been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews. That's been the Boya BY-AP4 TWS wireless buds.